Welcome to Lecto. Today we are going to discuss scapula. In this lecture, we will discuss the right scapula, its border, angles and different processes. Let's start. Here you can see two structures of the scapula. This is actually the ventricle surface and this is actually the dorsal surface. Ventricle surface, there is a depression which is called the concave side of the ventricle, and here at the dorsal surface, this surface is actually protruding or projecting outward, and this is the actually the convex surface. Actually, why this is concave and this is convex? Actually, there is a rib cage and the scapula are present in that situation, and this is actually the ventral surface and this is actually the dorsal surface. The ventral surface is actually concave like, cave like, and the dorsal surface is the convex like, so we call it ventral surface is actually concave and dorsal surface is actually convex. So this is why we call convex and concave. We considered three angles and the borders of the scapula by the magical triangle. Here you can see this is the lateral angle, this is the inferior angle, and this is the superior angle. So these are the three angles, and the borders will be, this is the lateral border, this is the superior border, and this is the medial border. So these are the three borders. We consider lateral angle as reference, and at the lateral angle there is a cavity which is called Glenoid cavity present at the lateral angle, and we take it as a reference. So here you can see we will first discuss its ventral surface and then the dorsal surface. Here you can see that this is the Acromion process. Acromion process of the scapula, and here this is the Coracoid process of the scapula, and here you can see at the Acromion process there is a facet, or you can say surface facet at which the clavicle will attach, and here you can see there is a cavity which is called glenoid cavity, at which humerus will attach. This is the site for the humerus, and above and below the glenoid cavity there are two tubercles. First one is this superior tubercle is basically called Supra glenoid tubercle. And below the glenoid cavity is actually a infra. Here is the infra glenoid tubercle. So these are the two tubercles. And here you can see this is a notch-like structure. Our the scapula, and this notch-like structure is basically called, this notch-like structure is called suprascapular notch. So this is the supra, means above the scapula. The notch which is present above the scapula is called suprascapular notch. Here you can see three ridges are present at the concave side of the scapula. Here you can see three ridge structure, and at the lateral side there is another ridge which is present longitudinally. As we have discussed the magical triangle, we take lateral angle as reference, and at the lateral angle glenoid cavity is present. Here is the glenoid cavity and we take it as lateral angle. So this is the lateral angle side. And then here is the superior. Opposite to that is the superior angle. Here is the, this angle is basically the superior angle. And that is the inferior angle. So these are the three angles of the scapula: lateral, superior and inferior. And the borders will be like this. The between the lateral and the inferior angle is present, which is called the lateral border. And actually this portion, this border is actually a thick one. And between the superior and the inferior angle is the medial border. And here is the, this portion is actually the medial portion. And between the lateral and the superior angle is present superior border, and actually this portion will be the superior portion, like this one. Upper portion of the scapula is the superior border. So these are the three angles and the borders of the scapula. So we have discussed lateral surface. Next we will discuss the dorsal surface of the scapula. Here you can see this is the dorsal surface. How will you differentiate that the scapula is ventral and dorsal? At the dorsal side, a special structure which is called the spine of the scapula. Here is this structure is basically a spine of scapula, like the spine of the body. And here you can see this is actually same. This is actually, this cavity is actually the glenoid cavity. And below the glenoid cavity there is a tubercle which is called glenoid tubercle. Here is the glenoid tubercle. And this process, same as previous, is actually the Coracoid process. Coracoid is actually the word which derives from cross beak. And here the spine will end at the Acromion process. Here actually basically the Acromion process. So these are the same. Keep remember, if we discuss the spine of the scapula, it's actually a triangular shape. Actually this is the 2D, we are discussing it in two-dimensional, Actually, this is the front view. If we see at the turn, if we turn this scapula, we will see it here, right? This. Actually, this is triangular. Spine of the scapula are actually present in the triangular shape. So keep this, remember that the spine of the scapula are basically in the triangular shape. And here you can see that this notch is basically the same as the previous one, and this notch is actually the suprascapular notch. And here another notch which is called this one. There is another notch which is called Glenoid notch. Actually, in the glenoid notch, several veins and nerves pass through the glenoid notch. So this is the pathway. And here you can see spine of the scapula divide the dorsal surface of the scapula into two regions. First region is basically called this upward portion is basically called this one. This portion is called the Supraspinous fossa. Supraspinous fossa. And here the larger portion will be the Infraspinous fossa. So these are the two fossa, superior and inferior. And here you can see at the ventral side, this portion is actually the subscapular fossa. So at the ventral surface you see the subscapular fossa, and at the dorsal surface you see the supraspinous fossa and the infraspinous fossa of the scapula, which is the shoulder blade. If we see the magical triangle, the lateral angle will be present at the glenoid cavity. Here is the glenoid cavity, so this side will be the lateral angle. In front of that will be the superior angle, and below is the inferior angle. So these are the three angles: lateral, superior and inferior. And the sides will be between the superior angle and the lateral angle is the superior border. Between the lateral and the inferior angle is the lateral border. Here is the lateral border, which is actually thick. And between the superior and the inferior is actually the medial border, and this will be the medial border. So there are three angles: lateral, superior and inferior. Upward is the superior border. At the side of the glenoid cavity is the lateral border, and opposite to that is the medial borders of the scapula, which is also called the shoulder blade. So this is all about the different processes, angles and borders of the scapula. If you have any question, then you may ask in the comment section.